Hi everyone, I'm Joe Brady. I'll be your host today as we explore a category of gear that may be new to you. That's the world of grip equipment. Now, we've spent a lot of time exploring tips and techniques for creating better images, and we're going to continue to do so. However, during today's session, we're going to step back and take a look at gear for setting up a safe and effective portrait studio. And by the way, actually, it turned out to be a lot of fun doing this. I think you'll enjoy it. So there's a lot of cool gear that can make your life a lot easier and your studio a lot safer. Now, commercial photographers and people in the video world know all about using what is commonly termed as grip equipment. But most wedding and portrait photographers who've never been exposed to C-stands and boom arms and all of the various clamps and accessories that can help getting your set and your lights into position and secure. Now, this stuff might sound boring and/or technical, but as I said before, it's actually both effective and a lot of fun. When I started using some of these tools, I immediately realized that with a small investment, you can put together a kit that provides a lot of useful options. In fact, we were talking about it this morning and I realized it's kind of like playing with a giant Kinect set. It was really a lot of fun, and once you see how easy it is and the benefits of it, it's great. Now, speaking of benefits, what is it going to do for you? Well, first of all, it protects your gear. Using a C-stand instead of a standard light stand is going to give you a much more stable platform. Having a light fall over and smashing can run you from several hundred to several $1,000s. Secondly, it allows you to safely place lights wherever you need them. You can see above me, I've got a couple lights right overhead here. By adding a boom or extension arm, you can add a hair light above your set or a top light without having to worry about it falling. And most importantly, it protects your clients. C-stands don't only hold your lights much steadier than a standard light stand, they don't tip over as easily. You don't want to have your gear falling on your clients, be they adults or children. It's really bad for business and your bank account. So let's start building a portrait set from the ground up. Much of what we're going to do is based on C-stands, which may be something new to you. So let's take a closer look at one of these, because that's an important first step. Now, a couple months ago, I bought a pair of C-stands, the Kupo turtle-based C-stands. In fact, I've got one right here. We'll see it a lot closer in a minute. For use in our home studio. Now, I've been around grip gear for many years, but I hadn't bought any of it for my own studio. Once I started using it, I really can't believe I waited as long as I did. My wife does a lot of children's portraits in our studio, and she had been using just standard light stands to support a pair of monolights. While they're functional, she was never completely comfortable with the shakiness of these heavy lights on basic light stands. They became top heavy and always seemed in danger of toppling over. Now, using sandbags on the legs helped, but we always had to keep a close eye on them, particularly if children were running around on the set. Once the monolights were mounted on a pair of C-stands, however, those fears went away. The weight distribution and stability of the entire rig allows you to concentrate on your subject, and particularly when you're adding to the weight of the system by mounting, say, something like a large softbox over top of your light. Now, there are two different base styles for C-stands, the turtle base and the sliding leg. Now, turtle base stands are great for travel and storage. That's what we went with, and you can see here, they just fold up into nothing. This base piece also comes off just by unscrewing this clamp, so it does travel a lot better. They just take up very little room. There's just a little collar here. You just hold it and it releases. And by the way, you can see the shape on the bottom of this. That's where the C-stand word comes from. On a sliding base, it allows you to adjust the height of one leg so that you can make it level or perfectly vertical on an uneven surface, such as a curb, an incline, or even a staircase. So we did record some segments so we could zoom in cleaner and let you see some of the gear. So let's take a closer look, and we'll start with some things you can do with C-stands. Much of what we're going to do is going to be based on C-stands. I keep mentioning you haven't seen one yet. So a close look at one of these is an important first step. Now, I've got a couple here on the set. I've got one here. These are made by Kupo. This is a C-stand, and it has something called a turtle base. And our friend Jason has a great demo on this that I'll show you in just a second. But I just wanted to show you the two basics. These C-stands are very heavy compared to a regular light stand, but that stability and heaviness is what's going to provide the safety. The turtle base is very cool in that the legs fold up into nothing. This piece separates out if you're going to do some traveling with it. These are really nice to have. The other type is called a sliding leg. Now a sliding leg stand, again, it's got the same kind of C configuration, and yes, that's where the name comes from. The difference is one of the legs can slide up and down. And you might think at first glance, well, why would I ever want to do that? Well, there's really two areas or two situations where it might come in handy. If you've ever tried to mount a light on a staircase, really a pain, isn't it? Well, in this, you can take one leg and rise it up so that it will sit on a set of stairs. Secondly, maybe you're outside and you're on a slant, you're on a driveway or something that you want to have your lights up, but you can't get them up straight up and down. By doing this, you can have your stand still going straight up and down and having it on an uneven surface. Now, a couple months ago, I bought a couple of the Kupo turtle-based C-stands for use in our home studio. My wife does a lot of children's portraits, and she had been previously using standard light stands to support a pair of monolights. Now, while functional, she was never completely comfortable with the shakiness of these heavy lights. They became top heavy and always seemed in danger of toppling over. Using sandbags on the legs helped, but we always had to keep a close eye on them, particularly if your children were running around the set. Once the monolights were mounted on a pair of C-stands, those fears went away. The weight distribution and stability of the entire rig allows you to concentrate on your subject. A standard light stand might work fine for a speed light, but when you start dealing with monolights, these are starting to add a lot of weight to the system. Something like a C-stand is going to be a much more stable platform, and even if it does tip a little bit, they're going to fall back into place. You still probably don't want to go too far with it, but you can just see it's a very stable platform and it's much safer. Another real cool and useful feature of a C-stand is you can mount more stuff to them. For example, what if I was after very even lighting over maybe a full-length portrait or wanted to light an entire background up that was going to require more than just one head? What you can do is add something called a three-way clamp. I've got one right here. And this will allow me to mount this to the C-stand and add more stuff to it. I add this additional piece. This is called a baby stud. So with the three-way clamp, I put the baby stud in the slot. This just clips onto the stand, tighten it up, and I have another place on my single C-stand to mount more gear. So here I've got another mounting stud from this three-way clamp coming out of my C-stand. And again, C-stands are heavy enough and stable enough that I can mount multiple lights to a single stand. So if I wanted to add another monolight to here, I can just position it over the baby stud and tighten it down. This is something you would never be able to do with a standard light stand. It just couldn't handle the weight. So here you can see a single C-stand easily holding two monolights. Really, could I push it and add another one and put a third one on the side? Certainly. That's the beauty of these. They're that stable. All right, so as you just saw, besides being heavier and much more stable, the other really cool thing you can do, it's very useful, is you can mount more stuff to a C-stand. In fact, just while that was playing, I added a couple of lights to the C-stand I've got right here. These are a couple of Bowens monolights. I've got one on the top. I added the three-way clamp and the baby stud here and mounted another one off to the side. It becomes very stable. Someone did ask a question, given the weight of a C-stand, what are the ways to transport them safely? Well, that's one nice thing about the turtle base. Because the base removes, we just have one of our cars as an SUV, and they literally just get put in the back of the SUV. With the poles coming apart as well, they just go in along with the stand separately. Now, these poles come in different lengths. They come in 20, 30, and 40 inches. And you can go from about this high on the shortest one up to pretty high. In fact, very common to use a C-stand also as a background support, so we'll see that as well. Now, another common need in a studio is mounting lights overhead for hair lights or top lighting. Now, if you're using studio lights, be they monolights or heads from a generator pack, say to an off-camera flash, standard light stands aren't going to give you the stability you need without constantly being in danger of falling over. And depending on how far you need to have the stand off to the side of the set, even a small speed light can be risky. We just did a shot 2 days ago where we had a speed light as a hair light right over the middle of our set. And with that much distance off of the stand, we had to go to a C-stand. Now there are two solutions to mount this type of light where you need it and keep it there safely. The first option is to use a grip arm, a grip head, and a grip arm support. In fact, I've got one right behind me here. Rick, if you can zoom out a bit, I'll go ahead and loosen this and bring it down. So here we can see we've got a grip arm. This is a grip head here, a standard piece that goes on top of all of our stands, and then the grip arm support. This allows me to kind of cantilever a piece out over a stand, and just by loosening these two levers, I can change the height, tighten it back down, and the combination of this just with a sandbag makes this really, really safe. As I mentioned, 20 and 40-inch Kupo C-stands are available in kits, so I didn't mention that include both the grip head and a grip arm. And this is sufficient for lighter weight gear, such as a small off-camera flash. But if you're going to add bigger pieces, like I've got this fluorescent head, or if you're going to start to add monolights up there, you're going to need to add this grip arm support that creates this triangle that makes it much more stable. Now the second option is to use what's called a boom arm. These are extendable arms that connect with the same grip head onto the C-stand and allow to hang your light from the extended end. On the other end, they have a hanger from where you hang a sandbag as a counterweight. And let me just get something out of the way here of my little forest of grip gear. In fact, I'll just drag this one over so you can see a little better. So you can see on the opposite end here, I've got a sandbag hanging, and then this is the boom arm, which travels over, if Rick, you can follow me here, up to, again, I've got another Bowens monolight. This is a 400RX, and again, very stable. And with the sandbag on the other end, it balances out. This allows you to put heavyweight gear even further out because you can change the balance, think of it like a seesaw, by adding even more sandbags if you have a heavier piece there. This is a better way to go if you're going to mount a heavy light above your set. You know, it's easier to show you rather than talk about it, how to set these up, and I can do it more precisely this way. So let's see both options a bit more closely. Now, if you're using studio lights, be they monolights or heads off of a pack or continuous lights or even an off-camera speed light flash, standard light stands aren't going to give you the stability you need to put a hair light overhead without constantly being in danger of falling over. Also, depending on how far you need to have the stand off to the side of the set, even a small speed light can be risky. There are two solutions to mount this type of light where you need it and keep it there safely. Now the first option is to use a boom arm. These extendable arms connect into a grip head on the C-stand, I'll show you that in a second, and allow you to hang your light from the extended end. On the opposite end is a hanger from where you can hang a sandbag as a counterweight. They're really simple to use and easy to adjust both in height and distance. This is the way to go if you're going to be using something heavier, another monolight or just any kind of heavy light. The second option is to use a grip arm, a grip head, and a grip arm support. So let's take a look at that first. This is a nice way to go, particularly for smaller or lighter lights. So here's a grip arm with an extension, and it has a large T-handle on here, and you can see the teeth open up, and it just allows me to mount this to the mounting stud of any light stand. It's really very basic, it's very simple. And before it's tightened up, I can just adjust the angle of this how I want it, tighten it down, and that's as easy as it is. Now, as nice as this is, you still have a lever out over top of this stand without a counterweight. That's why I don't like to put too much weight on the end of one of these. However, to make this much safer, we've got a really cool accessory here. So to keep this whole lever safe, I'm going to add something called a grip arm support. This is going to form kind of a triangle to make this a much more stable system. And it's very simple to do. I clip one end onto the arm and just tighten it up. And then the other end is going to connect actually to the light stand. So I'm going to loosen this stand and raise it up a bit. And we're going to use one of the three-way clamps again that we just saw. I can put this baby stud through here, through the side of the three-way grip arm, tighten it down. So here we've got it mounted around the light stand. I just tighten this up. I can keep the extension loose, and I can adjust the angle of this arm as I need. Once I get everything into the position and the right angle I want, then tighten everything down. The addition of this extra arm is going to make this a much more stable platform. However, again, you're still cantilevering some kind of weight off to one side. So whenever you're doing this, make sure you use one of these. This is a sandbag. So now I've got a nice stable platform ready for a light. And in this case, I'm going to put a continuous light source on here. So I've just lowered the arm a little bit so I can easily reach. I've got my light here. This is a Bowens fluorescent light. It's got 5 tubes in it. Makes for a really nice hair light or background light. And I just attach it to the end of the grip arm. Just tighten it down. I can position it into place depending on angle that I want. I know I'm going to want it about like that, because now I'm going to adjust the angle by loosening the grip arm support and the handle here. Just put it up to the height that I want and tighten it down. And that gives me a nice stable platform. And you can see I've got the light way up here, but it's a hair light. It's not that high over my head. But that's the beauty, again, with the C-stand. These come in different lengths. I can just loosen the bottom and put it up nice and high. And with the combination of the sandbag down on the other side, the platform is pretty stable. I know it's going to be safe. Now, if I want to put something even heavier up there, maybe a monolight, I'm probably going to want to have a little bit more support or a little bit more of a balance. So for that, we're going to use a boom arm. Let's take a look at that. Now, if you want to mount something heavier, let's say you own some monolights, you don't have something lighter like that fluorescent, or maybe a generator head, which is a lighter type of light, I'm going to mount a monolight on here, which is a pretty heavy piece of equipment. So again, I've got my C-stand, I've got a sandbag over one of the legs. So I'm going to start by adding a grip head on the top of this stand. And again, this is still a standard light stand head. So all of this stuff, if you had one of these, could you put it on a regular light stand? Yes, it would fit. Probably fall over, but yes, it would fit. So again, I've got a large T-handle that will open up the clamp side, and then a handle on this side to tighten it down to the stand itself. So I'm going to put this in position, and I'll put it out front so you can see a little better. Now it's waiting for the boom arm. This is called the baby boom. And what this does is it slides right through the grip head attachment, and you just tighten this down. And I'm just going to put it low here. You can see there's a hook here, and this is where we're going to hang a sandbag, because this is going to counterweight what we put on the other end. Okay, so I've got my same monolight here. Again, a nice light, but it's a fairly heavy piece of gear. So I do want it to be stable. That's not something I want to have falling over. So I tighten that down, I adjust the head the direction I want, tighten it down there, and now it's ready to be raised after I add one more sandbag. Okay, so I've got another sandbag. I'm going to hang this from the opposite end of the boom arm. And now I can extend out the boom arm so that I have it out at the distance that I want. And you can go quite far here. We'll bring it out pretty far. And then here we can adjust the balance of it so that if I release this arm, release the grip head, you can see where the weight is, and I can adjust the weight based on how it's hanging. So that's pretty stable right there. So now what I can do is bring the head up into position, tighten it. And the nice thing about having the sandbag on the other side is it's practically a zero balanced teeter-totter here. There's very little weight on this end because this is balancing it out. So now that I've got the system ready to go, if I want to raise my light even higher, just lift up. And that is a nice way to put a hair light or a light way above that's a heavier light. With this combination of the counterweight on the boom arm and the sandbag on the light stand itself, you end up with a very safe and stable platform. And again, that's really important because safety is important in the studio, not only for your clients, but for your gear. You don't want a light like that falling down on you or on itself because it's going to cost you a lot of money. All right, a couple quick questions before we continue. Someone asked, any advantage of black versus silver? Good question. I've got a grip extension arm here that's in black. It's a powder coated piece. silver I've got on the rest of the stuff. Well, what's the difference? Well, black is a very matte black. It's a non-reflective surface. You're not going to have any chance of a light bouncing off of here and illuminating something you don't want. However, that said, in my experience, since generally the lights are hanging from the grip equipment rather than reflecting on it, I don't think I've ever come across a situation where a silver piece of equipment caused any trouble. And also, the black, since it is a coating on it, if you're traveling with it, it can get scratched and ding, and then silver starts to show through. So it's a personal preference, but in reality, in actual working, I haven't seen any disadvantage to going with the silver stuff, and it stays silver. Someone asked about if I'm going to go in any close demonstrations about how to use stuff, like some of the grip heads and really fine tune it. This today is meant as kind of an overview, mostly for people who haven't seen any of this stuff before. If you go onto kupogrip.com, there's a whole bunch of videos there that our buddy Jason did that goes over the very fine points of every piece of equipment that's available. So if you want to see that kind of demonstration, go on to kupogrip.com, and we'll include that again in our follow-up email. So let's talk a little bit about our old friend, the standard light stand. Now, there's still many times when a standard light stand is really the perfect tool. If you're simply mounting speed lights for off-camera lighting, even with light modifiers like small soft boxes and umbrellas, it's a great idea. Now, if you're going to be outside and it's even a slight bit breezy, even inside, you should always do this, you're going to need to add sandbags to the legs to keep the whole thing from blowing over. This is also a Kupo sandbag. They come in 15, 25, and 35 pound sizes, but you don't pay for that shipping. They come empty. You supply the sand, and these straps just simply Velcro closed. But a worthwhile investment. Now, I like to use basic light stands for my portable studio. If you've seen any of our lighting or location portrait sessions, I use a standard light stand for that because a lot of times we have to carry our gear quite a ways. If we're having a big shoot with a lot of people, we'll go through C-stands, particularly if it's going to be a little windy. But for a small, intimate, more environmental type shoot with 1 or 2 people, we'll still use light stands. Now, the first thing you're probably going to need is an umbrella mount with the addition of a hot shoe adapter. These allow you to mount both your speed light and an umbrella to pretty much any stand. Let me grab one here. This is a Kupo umbrella mount. And one of the cool things about this is, you might not have known this. Like my wife's been using these and I had to show her this. You've got this big handle here for changing the angle that your light or umbrella are at. Now sometimes as you're tightening the big handle, it might end up in a place that is inconvenient, or maybe it's sticking into something else. Well, these handles have something called a kipping option, which at first glance you might not notice. So you're thinking, well, I tighten it up and all of a sudden the handle's sticking in a place that's in my way. You can simply pull the handle out and rotate it to any position you want without loosening it. That's called kipping. So all of these pieces have what are called kipping handles. Now, even though a standard light stand is lightweight, did you know that you can safely add all kinds of stuff to a basic light stand? Now, Kupo's got a bunch of cool accessories that I now use. As a matter of fact, putting this demonstration together has cost me money. Once I dug deeper into what was available and started playing with some of this stuff, I just had to have it. So let's take a closer look at some more options involving just basic light stands. So I've got a standard light stand in front of me again. I thought we were just going to C-stands. Well, there are still many times when a standard light stand is really the perfect tool. If you're simply mounting speed lights for off-camera lighting, even with light modifiers like soft boxes of umbrellas, they'll still work. Now, if you're going to be outside and it's even a slight bit breezy, you're going to need to add sandbags again. And here I've got my little handy sandbag, and these come in different weights. Basically, you buy them empty and you fill them with sand. There's just Velcro enclosures. So I'm going to add the sandbag. That gives it a lot more stability. I like to use these basic light stands for my portable studio, and with a couple of accessories, they can be very versatile. Now, the first thing you'll probably need is an umbrella mount with the addition of a hot shoe adapter. These allow you to mount both your speed lights and umbrella to any stand. So let me grab one of those. So let's take a closer look at the umbrella mount. Now, there's 2 ways you can actually mount these. Standard way would be to mount it with the hole on the top and the umbrella fits in here, so that as you change the angle, the umbrella angle changes with your light. However, you may find some instances where you want the umbrella to be straight out, but you might want to, for some reason, change the angle of the light inside the umbrella. If you want to do that, you can actually mount it upside down. The umbrella mount is through this hole, and then you'd have the top that you could adjust the angle of the flash inside that. And I'm going to put the umbrella mount on top of this light stand. And there are 2 studs that are supplied with these mounts that have short screws on them. And I've got here a hot shoe adapter. Really should be called a cold shoe adapter. There's nothing hot about it, but I can mount the flash right into here. And this just fits on the other end of the umbrella mount, and I screw that down. Then I'll mount my flash in here. By the way, these handles, you might not have realized this, these handles do something called kipping. Now, as you're tightening these up, you might find that where the handle ends up is inconvenient. Maybe it's in the way of flash or some other piece of gear. Well, what a kipping handle does is you just simply pull it out and you can rotate it without changing the tightness of the mount in here. Not something obvious if you've never tried it. A lot of people I've shown this have been surprised that you can do this. So that's what allows you to do. You can tighten it down to where it needs to be, and then you can move the handle so that it's out of the way. So now it's ready for my flash. So I can take my flash, just put it in the shoe, tighten it down, and then I can rotate it so that it is into my umbrella. Now I can raise this up. I can adjust the angle of the flash with the umbrella. That would go right in here. Really handy. I have a whole bunch of these, and once again, if you're going to be maybe shooting downwards, and I put an umbrella here, I'll angle it up, and then just adjust my height as needed. Very simple, very basic. But there's a lot more cool stuff that you can do with these. A couple more handy accessories I'd like to show you to show a little bit more studio grip gear. I'm going to start up with something called the alley clamp. There's 2 variations of this simple clamp, which is called, again, the alley clamp. It's handy for holding a reflector or a flag. It can be mounted in multiple ways, but since it has all these grip attachments on it, you can use it in ways you might not even have thought. For example, my light stand here. You can see it's just a spring clamp. I can just open it and attach it to the side. It then has mounting points both here and here. If I take one of my handy little studs again, I can mount it to one of these cold shoe adapters, put it right in here. I can then take another flash and mount it to the side of this light stand. I can just loosen and then point it wherever I want. So as you can imagine, with this clamp, this is actually a very stable system. With this clamp, I can mount a flash anywhere I want. I could mount it on the edge of a table. I could mount it to a tree limb. Anything that's vertical or horizontal, that's going to allow me to clamp this on. Now there's another cool version of the alley clamp. The variation of this little clamp is called the off-camera flash alley clamp. It's basically the same alley clamp with the addition of a small ball mount with the shoe mount. And this handy clamp, again, allows you to quickly mount and position your off-camera flash in seconds to any round or flat surface. Once again, I just take my flash, put it in the shoe, and if you're out in the field, you can mount this to anything, a branch, a sleeping person, or any kind of light stand you've got around. The nice thing about having the small ball head on it is you can then treat it as if it was mounted on a tripod and mount it in any direction you want. Really cool little accessory, very handy, allows you to put your flashes anywhere. In addition, with these clamps, you can mount flags, you can put other grips on here and have it holding reflectors, flags, anything you want. Saves you having to have too many assistants with you. Okay, couple quick questions. Someone asked, can you add wheels? And the answer is yes, you can add wheels to the C-stands or just to the base. In fact, we've got, I don't know if Rick, I don't know if we can see it on the set here. If you can go back to our light stand, or our background stand in the back, you can see we've got the arm on a set of wheels. So yes, and that's another nice thing for me about having the turtle base where I can remove that stand. I could take it from the standard Turtle C-stand base and put it on one of the wheeled bases if I had something I needed to wheel around. But good question. Somebody asked, what's the best media to fill the sandbags with? What I'd recommend is that you buy a sandbag, fill it with gold coins, and then mail it to me, and then I'll answer that question. Other than that, though, we just use play sand from Toys R Us or Home Depot or a place like that. You could use gravel. Really, you could just about use anything you'd like. I'd like to show you two more pieces of gear. One of them is fun and useful, and the other is really practically a necessity. So let's take a look at the first one called the Vision Arm, and then the folding base mini stand in action. This is a new piece of gear that I've found very valuable. It makes putting accessories nearby very easy, including off the top of your camera. It's called the Vision Arm. It has a removable hot shoe so that you can mount it in any hot shoe adapter or, as I mentioned, on top of your camera. One of the things that's remarkable, and I'm not sure how they figured this out, is this one single arm, as you tighten it, not only tightens the position of the arms, but tightens the two ball heads at either end. Don't know how they pulled that one off. But very simple. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount an external monitor off the top of my camera. So I'm just going to put one end into my hot shoe. And again, you see everything's kind of floppy here because I have this center arm loose. And then I'm going to attach an external monitor to this end of the arm. And again, I can position everything freely where I want. This is very handy if either maybe you have someone else who's watching over your shoulder, a director or a parent, or maybe you're on set and you want to see your own framing and you want to have the monitor pointing out towards you while you're on camera. This is handy for both stills and for video. Let's say I'm going to go with I want somebody off that way to be able to see what's going on. I just get it into position, and then once I tighten this arm, the amazing thing happens in that all the joints tighten at once. Don't know how they figured that out. It's very cool. So I'll just connect my HDMI cable in to the other side of my camera, fire my camera up, turn the monitor on. Here I've got my external monitor running off my camera, and again with the simple adjustment of this one arm, it's really amazing. I can put it anywhere I want to get it into position that works for me. Again, maybe I've got somebody over there that wants to see what's going on. Just get it into place, tighten the arm where you want, you're done. It's that easy. And you can put any kind of accessory on here. I find it very handy for this. You could use it for off-camera flash. If you're into macro photography and you wanted to position your flash maybe off to the side, you could do that as well. Put your flash up on top of here and bring the flash so that it is not being blocked by your lens or lens shade, so you can get your light into right in front. Really handy item. Gonna definitely add this to my toolbox. Another great piece of gear, I find myself using this all the time, and whenever I don't have one with me, I wish I did. This is called a folding mini base clamp, and it doesn't look like much, but it's a really short light stand, and the legs just rotate around so that you have a very low light stand if you need to put something on the ground. But there's more. There's an extension arm that comes with it where you can get a little bit more height out of it. But what I found often is that I wish I could have a backlight, something very low to the ground but has a more stable platform than maybe just the little feet that come with the flashes. So what I'll do is use one of the umbrella mounts. I've got the flash mounted to that, and I simply need to add a stud that's going to go into the bottom of this clamp. So I'll take one of the standard studs, put that in the bottom of the base, just tighten it down, put my umbrella mount over it, and I've got a beautiful, very stable, yet low light that I can use to either come up from behind and maybe do a rim light or just to light up a background. So here we go. That's the entire height of the stand. Just put this on the floor where I want, and I've got myself a great light. If I want to add a little bit of height to this, then I'll just add the extension arm. This is a nice accessory. It's inexpensive and extremely versatile. So I'll just put the little extension arm on here, and you can see it goes from being about 3 inches off the ground to almost 3 feet. Really handy device to have. You definitely want to have one in your toolkit. Very handy for the home studio, or if you're going out to a client's and you just have a back wall that needs a little bit of light, but you need to be able to hide the light at a low location, behind a sofa around a corner, and this allows you to get it right close to the floor or anywhere up to about 3 feet high. You want one of these. One of the real cool use that I found for the Vision Arm, and I didn't think of this till after the fact, and that was not putting a monitor on it. But what I did was I put a little light panel on here. So if you want to do some macro stuff, it allows you to position. You can see I've got the light panel. I could do macro stuff with the light coming in from the side and just rotate it around any place I want. And it's just sitting in the hot shoe of my Sony here. So another really cool thing. So Jason, this is your fault. Now I got to buy one of these too. So lastly, let's not forget the photographer's version of duct tape, gaffer tape. If you're not familiar with this, it's a cotton cloth tape. It's got a strong adhesive, allows you to keep cables and power cords from being tripped over. But a big difference between gaffer tape and duct tape is that gaffer tape can be removed much more cleanly than duct tape, so little or no residue is left to clean up. Wow, that was a lot, especially if you haven't seen this stuff before. Let's sum up what we've taken a closer look at today. First of all, if you weren't familiar with C-stands, I hope you add them to your wish list. Once you start using them, you're not going to want to use a standard light stand for anything larger than a speed light support. C-stands can hold heavy lights. They can be used as a background support. With the addition of extension arms and booms, then you can safely mount lights way overhead. We've taken a look at accessories for adding a hair light, adding a second light to a single stand, looked at a couple of clamps and adapters that will hold all kinds of light shaping accessories like reflectors, flags, and diffusers. You can also use this stuff with other stuff you may already own. For example, right over here, I've got a standard light stand, and one of our new friends, Bowens, sent us a reflector kit. So we've got a round reflector here with the Bowens reflector holder mounted into a grip head on a standard light stand. It just eliminates having to have someone else there just standing a reflector for you. There are actually hundreds more clamps, accessories, arms, poles, etc. that you can explore. But again, today was meant to be a basic overview to get you started. If you've got a piece of gear that needs to be supported and you've run out of either hands or assistance, there's a piece of grip that can do that job for you. So now that you've got a great base for your studio gear, you can concentrate on lighting your client and creating beautiful portraits. And that's what it's really all about. I'd like to thank Kupo for sponsoring us and providing all the great gear we saw today, even if it is going to cost me money for all the new stuff that I just have to have. If you'd like to learn more about all the cool gear available for any studio support need, visit their website, kupogrip.com. In our follow-up email, we'll include a list of all the gear we looked at today, because I know you're going to want some of it. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for the great questions, and thanks for your interest. So until next time, keep learning, keep shooting, and be well. Bye-bye.